Welcome to the Pacific Research Institute Next Round podcast. I'm Tim Anaya, PRI's Vice President of Marketing and Communications, and your podcast co-host. Happy 2026 to all of our listeners. We unfortunately start the new year with some very sad news with the tragic passing of our dear friend and beloved Congressman Doug LaMalfa from the North State, who tragically passed away earlier this week. I'd known Doug for more than 20 years. He was one of the good ones in politics. I didn't get to see him very often in person these days, but I was touched by a recent story a friend of mine told me when she said she ran into him in Washington this past December. And she said one of the first things he asked her was, "How's the Annihilator?" which was his nickname for me. We'll miss Doug very much. We really need more Doug LaMalfas in politics these days. This week also marks another tragic reminder. It's the 1-year anniversary of the destructive Southern California wildfires that destroyed so many homes, businesses, properties, and, sadly, took many lives as well. On the occasion of the 1-year anniversary, PRI was honored this week to have the opportunity to sit down with Rick Caruso, one of the largest private developers in the United States, longtime Los Angeles civic and philanthropic leader, and of course, former mayoral candidate. Mr. Caruso has been one of the most outspoken voices in LA since the wildfires, criticizing the ineffective leadership of city, state, and federal leaders in the rebuilding and recovery efforts, and advocating for much-needed reform to help residents rebuild faster, cheaper, and stronger. Stephen Greenhut, the director of PRI's Free Cities Center, asked Mr. Caruso whether LA officials are taking the necessary steps to help rebuild a stronger LA. And he also asked him about what policy reforms he believes state and federal policymakers should enact to ensure that wildfires of this severity don't hurt as many people and businesses when they unfortunately inevitably occur again in the future. I think you'll find this a very interesting and enlightening conversation. Thanks so much for listening. We hope you enjoy our conversation.
Yeah. 1-year anniversary of the wildfires at Free Cities Center from PRI. We try to look at solutions to Western cities' problems, and we know you've been a big critic of LA's handling of the wildfires, the aftermath, and we wanted to get some of your ideas on that. So back in February, you complained about empty reservoirs, not working fire hydrants, all the usual, and I'm wondering if you could go into some of the details of what you saw and whether your evaluations changed a year later.
Sure. Well, my evaluation, now is well documented by independent sources. So, early on in the process, I was vocal about the fact that the fire hydrants did run out of water. We had a reservoir that wasn't filled up, that was empty, that should have been filled up. There was a whole question of whether or not the fire department had pre-deployed, what the planning was. And it was clear to me that the city was not prepared, in spite of the warnings that the city got of the winds coming in. And now that we've gotten the after-action report, and now that we had some very good reporting by the Los Angeles Times, that clearly lays out the fact that the fire department was not prepared. The fire department had allowed the original fire on January 1 to be left smoldering, that the firemen were called off, which was a huge mistake. And so when the winds came up on January 7th, it reignited the fire on the 1st. Had the fire on the 1st been properly put out and or a engine would have been pre-deployed there, you wouldn't have had a fire. So, as I've said, I think it is the largest urban disaster that could have been easily prevented. And so the situation, based on the reporting of the LA Times and the after action, actually, shows it was even worse than I suspected.
And so what are your thoughts now a year later? Do you have a general concept of whether there has been an improvement in how the city's been dealing with things, or
I think you really got to All you have to do is ask the people that are out there trying to get permits and get back into their community and get their businesses reopened. They're struggling to do that. I think the city has not managed it well. The fact that the mayor has not appointed a czar, recovery czar as promised, is a problem. You've got to have a person along with a team of people that's focusing on this every single day to help people rebuild. It's a massive operation when you think about it. It's 300,000 acres that have been burnt, 7,000 structures, and thousands of jobs being lost. I don't think they're doing a very good job at all.
Now, I looked on the portal, and for the longest time, there were just a handful of permits. All of a sudden, we're seeing it's been picking up, or it's, 2,500 or something like that. But there haven't been a lot of houses that actually have been rebuilt. So, what are your thoughts on specifically where the problem is, since the state has tried to exempt some of the CEQA and Coastal Act regulations, but we're still seeing a pretty slow pace of rebuilding, right?
Absolutely. Listen, one is we have to be careful when you talk about 2,500 permits. There's multiple permits issued for one house. So that's not necessarily there's 2,500 permits to build homes, 2,500 homes, right? There could be 5 to 10 permits for a home. There's a foundation permit, right? The structural permits. So there's separate permits, the grading permits. What we've done at Steadfast on the positive side is trying to help people get back into their communities as quickly as possible. We developed, along with the folks, Mike Hopkins at Amazon and Archistar, a AI model that actually plan checks for people in a matter of hours that would otherwise be taking the city months. Now, it took the city longer than we had hoped to adopt it, and they're still having some glitches adopting it, but it's a fully functioning system. So that's one of the things that would be so helpful if the city had that up and running. The second is they should have plan checkers actually out in the field so that the people that are trying to rebuild in the Palisades can just go to a city trailer out there and be able to meet with a plan checker, go through plans. So, I look at it, everything should be done to make this easier to get back into your community. One of the other things we did was help form what's called a Builders Alliance. These are 11 home builders that are working together that provide people different options of home styles, layouts, very much more efficient, and the cost per square foot is dramatically reduced because of that. So that hopefully, and I think it will help speed up the rebuilding of the homes out there.
Yeah, I saw in the county, in Altadena, they came up with some bungalow floor pre-approved plans
and we've been donating. We'll have our first homes donated out there by the end of this month.
Have you seen a big difference in the way the county and the city have responded?
No.
It's bad both ways?
Yeah, yes. I don't think it's great. I think so much more could be done. It's just you've got to have people. Government alone cannot do this. This was the whole reason we did Steadfast. But you've got to have also people that you're bringing in to help the county, help the city organize this logistically, work process-wise, that understands the workflow to get people redeveloped, the undergrounding of the power lines, coordinated with the repaving of the streets, coordinated with the rebuilding of the homes, supporting the areas that really create a sense of community, the churches, the schools, the synagogues, all of those things. And so unless you've got a dedicated team of experts, you're going to struggle doing it.
Now, could you talk about Steadfast LA and what it is and what your ideas and how it's been going?
So Steadfast LA, I started a few weeks after the fires. Very simple idea, again, that the city alone, or the county, or the state for that matter, government alone, cannot take on the rebuilding of this in the most efficient, innovative way. That public-private partnership is the best way to go. We've seen that certainly, after the tragedy of 9/11, the rebuilding of New York, et cetera. And so what Steadfast is, it's an organization, a nonprofit. I've asked some of the most talented people in different industries to donate their time and their talent. And we take discrete problems We put these experts on these problems, we solve these issues or problems, and we hand it off to the city or the county or the state at no cost to them. The AI model is a good example. The Builders Alliance is a good example. The Samara Home Program, which is the manufactured homes, is a good example to get people back in their communities quicker who are lower income or elderly that can't afford to rebuild or maybe underinsured. The redesigning and the rebuilding of Palisades Park is another good example. And then we also have a whole program that's giving out grants to small businesses to help keep them going or to get them reopened and support small businesses, because thousands of jobs are destroyed. So that's what Steadfast is doing, and we have a dedicated team that works on that every day. They're exceptional. Very proud of their work.
Do you deal with the city officials through Steadfast?
We do.
And how is their reaction to what you're doing?
They've been open to it, and we've have a good working relationship. I mean, we would like them to move quicker on decision making and whatnot. Typically governments don't move very quick, but in a very productive way, we're pushing them as much as we can, and we've found areas that we're working together, and they acknowledge we've been very helpful to them.
Yeah, one of the things I've been trying to get at is, there have been some of these exemptions, as I mentioned, that, at least sounded good to rebuild, and yet it's still so slow. Is it the local planning departments that are the problem? What's the obstacle?
It's the local plan checking, the planners. In LA City, the plan checkers have not been called back to work since COVID. They're working from home. I mean, this is ridiculous. You just had a big chunk of your city destroyed.
Right.
Get people back in their office. Like I said, get them in the Palisades where it's convenient. And adopting technology, we had to really push the city to adopt this technology on the AI modeling, right? We need to bring cities and governments into the 21st century with the technology we have. And I think they've been reluctant to do it. It's an unknown, and this is where private industry is really important to push them along.
I saw that the city and the county, they approved some level of a self-check or whatever they call it, where the engineer or the architect can check and then they could move forward. Has that been working all right? Or
I think it has. I mean, from what I know, it has. But again, you have to go through the first plan check, and then you can sort of self-certify after that. There's a whole bunch of bureaucracy and red tape that could be cut. I mean, I think the county and the city should say, if you've lost your home, we're going to approve your permits to rebuild within 30 days, period. It starts with the culture at the top, setting the ground rules of what the expectations are, right? And then that has to flow down to everybody. You have to organize that. That's the management skill of the leadership, what the leadership needs at the city or the county. And I think that's lacking, and that's why it's not working the way it should be working to support people.
Yeah, so on some of the specific suggestions, so you have sort of a czar to oversee it at the city, maybe have some time frames.
Right.
How would that be enforceable? I mean, because, I've written a lot about some of the insurance issues, and there's supposed to be time frames to review the rate increases, and it never happens, and nothing ever happens to the people.
But that's good management.
Yeah.
I mean, around this company, we have time frames, we have schedules. I expect everybody to be accountable and be held to it, and they know that. And you have to run the city or the county the same way. Yeah. So you turn to your head of your building department, you say, you got 30 days. That's what your team's got. Go put the policies and procedures in place and tell me what you need if you need something else, but you've got 30 days to process permits, period, end of story. And then you hold that person accountable.
Yeah, we had interviewed Willie Brown, and we asked him how he dealt with obstacles. He goes, well, I just got on the phone and I called the person, and so maybe it takes more of a proactive approach.
Well, you always have to be proactive, not reactive. That's for sure.
Yeah. Now, some observers have complained that maybe the rebuilding is focusing on increasing density. Do you see any evidence of that, or is that just chatter?
I think that's been driven by, there's been some state laws that have been supporting increased density. And so there's been some concern in these communities that it would change the nature and the character of the communities because of the density. But those laws, as far as I've seen, go to major corridors, that there's more density along major corridors and transit corridors. And that's not, to me, applicable up in the Palisades, and I don't believe so in Altadena either.
Right. Okay. Great.
Yeah.
So we've written a bit about SB 9 and 10 and all those,
Right.
but I think some of it was people just theorizing that there would be some plan to change everything.
But I think part of that, though, which I completely understand and acknowledge, people want their town back the way they had it.
Mm-hmm.
They want their town the way it looked on January 6th.
Yeah.
And so there's legitimate concern that, elected officials in Northern California that don't understand their town, who may be well-intentioned because we need more housing in the state,
Right.
are allowing density that's going to impact their sense of community. And I understand that concern. And I also understand that in the state we need to build more housing. So you have to do it in a very thoughtful way. And I think some of these laws came down without the public really understanding how it would impact their communities.
Well, how do you think the city administration's doing overall on the housing issue?
Terrible.
Yeah.
The numbers, just go to the numbers.
Yeah.
Lowest number of housing starts in 10 years in the city of LA.
What could they do? Is it just back to that planning department problem, or are there more exemptions that are needed?
But I think part of it is they got to cut the red tape, they have to cut the bureaucracy. It's too difficult and too expensive to build in the city of LA because of the regulations. And it's too unpredictable. So money goes other places. And the city, like the state, you're in a very competitive business. Attracting capital, bringing in businesses, and attracting capital to build housing. And so if Glendale or Culver City or Burbank has less regulation, more predictability, more certainty in terms of the process, the investment's going to go there. And what's happened is the city of Los Angeles is losing out on it. And our surrounding cities are eating our lunch. We have to be more competitive.
I saw an LA Times article that was saying no one's building apartments in LA.
Why would you?
Yeah, I mean, but that's what you're seeing, right? That there's
too expensive, too many regulations, too many hearings, too many meetings, too many organizations, too many layers of different government committees that you have to go through. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there are probably some reforms that are needed in the fire department too. I mean, I've covered fire departments. They're very bureaucratic. If you look at Transparent, California has the salaries, and there are a lot of people in the LA fire department earning $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 a year. So it's not a pay problem. Do you have any quick thoughts on what ought to be done at the fire department level?
Well, I think what we've seen in this after action report, and now the changes that were made to it, which is being called a cover-up, which I agree with. I think the men and women of the fire department are really good, hard-working people. The leadership there obviously needs to change. There's been a problem there, and there's a culture problem there. The fact that leadership at the fire department felt that they could change a report against the wishes of the drafter of that report and take out very important information that led to the cause of the fire, that is culturally corrupt, in my opinion. And those people that did that need to go.
Mm-hmm. Any thoughts on what the city can do on the insurance issue? Because that's been a big problem. I mean, it's more of a state issue with Prop 103, but is there any local?
It's a real problem. The city needs to be a big advocate, obviously, for changes at the state level. And I think we need help at the federal level to solve this problem. And we need to be looking at, and I'm not an expert on it, but we need to be looking at other states that have disasters like Florida with hurricanes, et cetera, on how it's done and how you get insurance. Because the struggle now for so many people trying to rebuild is not only getting the insurance, but the cost of the insurance.
Yeah, expensive. And part of the problem in California is the Prop 103 regulation that's a prior approval. It's a price control, so it's a difficult problem. But I've got really one last question for you. It's just a simple one. Legislature's coming back, Congress is coming back. What should they do? What just any thoughts on what specifically, what help you can get in Sacramento or Washington, D.C.?
I think these communities need financial help. There needs to be federal aid. The fact that we're celebrating an anniversary after a year now, we have zero federal aid. The cost to rebuild the infrastructure is enormous. And the city and the county cannot do it alone. And the federal government should come to our aid to do that, for sure. And the county and the city really need to go back and reorganize priorities and start putting together a program which includes a recovery czar and a team of experts that are eliminating every roadblock, unnecessary roadblock of getting people back in their homes, back in their businesses, starting to rebuild. Because after a certain amount of time, people lose hope. And that's a deadly thing. And so the city literally needs to have the culture of saying, we've got your back, and we're going to help you come back. Same with the state legislature. They need to do that. And that messaging, I think, would go a long way to give people the hope to move back into these communities and rebuild them.
Yeah. Any hope? Yeah, do you have a lot of optimism, or are you just...
I do.
Yeah.
I do. But the optimism doesn't come from solutions of the elected officials or the politician. The optimism for me comes from, and that's a great question, it comes from the people in those communities. I think there's so much desire to have their town back and have their kids go back to the same school and play in the same parks and see their neighbors. The sheer will and force of the community is going to make it happen in spite of the failings of the city or the county or the state. And so I have great confidence in the residents of Los Angeles to make it happen.
Great. Well, we thank you for your time. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
If you like this episode, please tell your friends and subscribe to PRI's podcast at iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. And when you're on these platforms, don't forget to give us a big 5 stars. If you don't subscribe to any of these, you can still listen on PRI's YouTube page, youtube.com/Pacific Research 1. That's the number 1. Thanks for listening. I'm Rowena Ichon. Hope you'll come back again for next round with PRI.